Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, members. Welcome to the adjourned council meeting. Please be seated. Would the Chief Executive please outline the procedure for this evening's meeting?
Of course, Madam Mayor. Members, in line with our safe working practices, whilst the pandemic is still with us, in order to protect staff and visitors, we would ask that whilst walking around the building, please wear a face covering unless you're exempt. In respect of the meeting this evening, when speaking, please ensure that your microphone is turned on. And councillors wishing to raise a point of personal explanation or points of order, you can do so by raising your hand, and the Civic Mayor will allow the member who's speaking to finish before taking these. Members, if you need to leave the meeting before it's finished, please follow Standing Order A25-7 and give your apologies via the Head of Governance Support before you leave. As I explained earlier, we are trialling live streaming this meeting, and therefore they will be available for members of the public to watch on our YouTube channel, and the proceedings will also be recorded. For those who are physically present in the room, can you please refrain from watching the live stream, as it does cause interference for our viewers at home. Lastly, from me, there's no fire test due this evening. If the alarms sound, please assemble outside in the Lifestyles car park.
The purpose of this meeting is to deal with a number of major issues for the well-being of Torbay and the community. My role as Civic Mayor is to ensure that today's agenda is dealt with efficiently, allowing fairness throughout the discussions. As you are aware, the meeting is governed by strict standing orders. To make sure that the meeting is run fairly, I expect healthy discussions and respectful speeches by councillors. Rest assured, I will not allow repetition or inappropriate personal comments, and I will interject. Apologies. Do we have any apologies for absence for this evening's meeting?
Madam Mayor, we do. We have apologies from Councillor Sykes, Councillor Jackie Thomas, Councillor Dart, Councillor Pentney and Councillor Jackie Stockman. Group leaders, are there any further apologies? Councillor Loxton?
Councillor Manning.
Thank you. Madam Mayor, on that basis, if I lead straight then into the interests, members, do you have any non-pecuniary or disclosable pecuniary interest in any of the matters on tonight's agenda? Madam Mayor, none are indicated. Officers, are there any personal interests in any of the matters on tonight's agenda? Madam Mayor, there are none.
Thank you. I move to item 3, appointment of Overview and Scrutiny Coordinator and Overview and Scrutiny Lead members. Can Councillor Loxton please put his motion to the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Overview and Scrutiny Coordinator and Overview and Scrutiny Lead members, that's a mouthful, have and will in the current year have important boards to chair, to see further improvement within the Council, challenge, investigate and interrogate, to find the best solution and conclusion to send back to the Cabinet. The continuous challenges by the Lead for Children, which has improved immensely. A new scrutiny leads for health and adult services and community and corporate services. We wish them well. And now no doubt officers will be challenged by the many emails from the Leave for Place. I am sure they are looking forward to this in the coming year. I propose that Councillor Douglas Dunbar be appointed as the Overview and Scrutiny Coordinator 22-23 municipal year, and the following councillors be appointed as the Overview and Scrutiny Leads for the 22-23 municipal year. Councillor Bye, Scrutiny for Leave for Children. Councillor John, Scrutiny Leave for Health and Adult Services. Councillor Barron, Scrutiny Leave for Community and Corporate Services. Councillor Kennedy, Lead for Place. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I rise to second and reserve my right to speak. Thank you.
I now invite debate.
Madam Mayor, there's no indication of anybody wishing to speak.
Councillor Darling, I return to you. You reserved your right.
Happy to go to the vote.
Councillor Loxton?
Yes, I'm happy to go to the vote also.
Ask the Chief Executive to take the vote.
Of course, Madam Mayor. Members, those in favour, please raise your hands. Sorry. That's unanimous, Madam Mayor.
I move to item 4, appointment to council committees. Can Councillor Steve Darling please put his motion to the council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor and colleagues. The paperwork has been circulated in advance of these meetings, which highlights the many and delightful appointments to these committees. Clearly, this is where many of the public do engage with our local authority, particularly in respect of some of the regulatory functions that we may undertake as a local authority, whether that's licensing or whether that's planning. I hope colleagues will be able to back the recommendations before us this evening.
Thank you. Do we have a seconder, please?
Madam Mayor, I rise to second and reserve my right and offer my congratulations to you on your appointment this afternoon.
I now invite debate. Councillor Carroll, you reserved your right.
Nothing to add.
Councillor Darling,
Happy to go to the vote.
as the Chief Executive, would you mind taking the vote, please?
Of course. Members, those in favour, please raise your hands. Again, Madam Mayor, unanimous.
Thank you. Can the leader of the Conservative group provide the names of his group's representatives to serve on each of the bodies in the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise and like to take this opportunity to congratulate you on your new appointment. My apologies for not being here this morning. I confirm that the Conservative Group representatives for each of the bodies are set out in Appendix 3 of the report circulated earlier this morning. Thank you.
Can the leader of the Liberal Democrat group provide the names of his group's representatives to serve on each of the boards in the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I rise to confirm that as with Councillor Thomas, I confirm that they are as in Appendix 3. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Can the leader of the independent the names of groups the group represented to serve on each of the bodies in the report? Sorry about that.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I confirm the independent group representatives for each of the bodies are set out on Appendix 3 to the report circulated today. Plus, I confirm the vacancies shown as circulated will be appointed as, but there isn't no vacancies. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Luxon. I now move to item 5, composition constitution of the Cabinet and record of delegates of executive functions. The Leader of the Council has circulated the scheme of delegation of elected functions to the Cabinet Committee of the Cabinet and officers. This item is just for noting. Item 6. Scheme of delegation for council functions. Can Councillor Carter please put her motion to the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and may I congratulate you too. This is something that we have to do every year, so we're pretty familiar with this. We've done it for a few years now. And the motion is that the scheme of delegation for council functions and the scheme of responsibility for local choice functions as set out in Part 3 of the Constitution, insofar as they relate to council functions, be approved.
Thank you. Is there a seconder?
Madam Mayor, I'd like to second.
I now invite debate.
Nobody's indicating.
No. And now we'll ask the Chief Executive if we could go to the vote. Take the vote, sorry.
Of course, Madam Mayor. Members, those in favour, please raise your hands.
Oh, sorry.
That's unanimous, Madam Mayor.
My apologies, Councillor Carter. I should have returned to you for your comments. Do accept my apologies for that.
That's okay.
Item 7, members' questions. Members, please be aware that I will be interrupting you if I consider your supplementary question to be a statement. Would the Chief Executive please explain the procedure for members' questions and invite supplementary questions as required?
Of course, Madam Mayor. Members, the questions and answers have been circulated and are noted as submitted, and these are available on your devices under the late reports pack. On behalf of the Mayor, I will be inviting supplementary questions, but those members asking a supplementary question, it must arise directly out of the original question or the reply. And it's important that questions shall not include a statement, and that standing orders require that you are only permitted to ask one supplementary question. There is a time limit, members, of 1 minute to ask the supplementary question. Response time for each supplementary is 3 minutes, with an overall maximum time for questions being 30 minutes. With that said, we will start the stopwatch. I refer to question 1 in respect of purchase of trees for Torbay Council. Councillor Douglas Dunbar, do you have a supplementary question?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I do not have a supplementary question.
Moving then to question 2 in respect of the land release fund for Little Blagden Farm, Preston Down Road and Garfield Road. Councillor O'Dwyer, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, thank you. Firstly, thank you for the information that's provided, but the information doesn't fully answer the question I asked. So we haven't sold Collerton yet, and we haven't sold Garfield Road yet, with the land registry documents as provided are quite old. And we've stated that we have sold Preston Down Road. Can we confirm, please, to who we sold the land and for what price for this valuable Torbay asset? Thank you.
Yeah, I'll get that information for Councillor O'Dwyer. Thank you.
Moving then to question 3 in respect of the LC Whip. Councillor Kennedy, do you have a supplementary question?
I do, Madam Mayor, thank you. Councillor Mooring, I am extremely disappointed by this response, which does not answer the specific question I asked relating to a legal document which should be in the public domain but is not. The response is vague and evasive. How do you wish me to respond to my residents on your behalf?
Councillor Maury.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And likewise, I would like to congratulate you on your appointment to becoming Mayor. And it's a case of rise and rise of Mandy Darling, despite being married to Steve Darling, but there we go. But in answer to Councillor Kennedy, I think if the wording of the reply doesn't answer your question, perhaps if you reword the question, that may bring forth a more detailed reply, that or satisfactory reply to what you want. Thank you.
I refer to question 4 in respect of the north toilets on Preston Seafront. Councillor Chris Lewis, do you have a supplementary question?
I do indeed. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. Councillor Maury, this has taken nearly 2 years for Preston Seafront for the toilets. Can you give a date when something is actually going to happen down there? Can you also have a look at, see if we can open the toilets that have been closed for over 2 years in Preston? With hindsight, those toilets could have been kept open. Is there any decision being made that they could be open in July for the school holidays? Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor Maury.
Thank you. I mean, Councillor Lewis, I think we all feel we would have liked to have seen this moved on at a quicker pace, but there are issues surrounding it. No, I cannot give you a date, which I think you can understand why not. And no, the Preston North toilets won't be open because they are in a serious state of disrepair. We've opened up the toilets at the Redcliffe end. We've provided toilets in the middle. So the facts and figures, the data does point is that Preston is adequately covered by toilets. Thank you.
I refer to question 5 in respect of job evaluation, equality and fairness across the council and its subsidiary companies. Councillor O'Dwyer, do you have a supplementary question?
No.
Moving then to question 6 in respect of overtime payments in Swisco in relation to waste collection services. Councillor O'Dwyer, a supplementary question?
I do on this one. Thank you very much. Again, thank you very much for the information. It is really useful, and I think it's important information that we have to assess services going forward. Torbay look in these figures provided as a significant outlier of net expense per head of population. So that means, obviously, for a family of 4, this you're looking at head of population, £280 to collect the waste. We just look like a very expensive urban authority when we should be cheaper. Is it possible to have another comparator, i.e. with Plymouth Unitary Authority, as we like unitary authorities in this, but also the other Devon authorities, to really establish where we are in the costs of collection, but also in the costs of recycling and total waste? So can I request some additional comparators and also the previous year's costs?
Councillor Dwyer, that's the end of your time, I'm afraid.
Councillor Maury.
Yes, thank you, Councillor Dwyer. First of all, stating the obvious, Swisco, like everyone else, is just coming out, hopefully, of a pandemic. Therefore, it has seriously affected the service provision. We all accept that, but we're now on the road to recovery. I think it'd be worth you, Councillor Dwyer, putting your question, specific question, in writing. Therefore, I can then get hold of the information you need, and well, hopefully, you need as ASAP.
Madam Mayor, that is the end of the questions. Councillor Morey, can you please turn your microphone off?
I move to item 8, temporary accommodation sufficiency strategy. Just take 1 second. Sorry, you go. Councillor Long, can you please put the Cabinet's recommendations to the Council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Absolutely. And I'd like to congratulate you on running the council as strictly as I know that you run your household. I was also very sad and had a quick look at the council's YouTube channel just to see how it looked, and I think I'm just out of shot of the screen. So I think for our viewer watching, it's probably just as well. Torbay is experiencing a housing crisis. Even before COVID, there were persistently high numbers on social housing waiting list and in temporary accommodation. COVID and the effect it has had on the economy, for example, people moving to coastal resorts or the rural areas to work from home, and the Airbnb effect on tourism has meant that owners can realise their assets by selling properties at higher prices or make more money from renting properties for holiday lets rather than for long-term rents. As the report lays out, there has been a staggering increase of 150% in demand for temporary accommodation in Torbay. I can't be the only councillor who has received a number of harrowing pieces of casework from people being evicted from their properties to make way for holiday lets or because their landlord is simply selling the property. I did have one particularly bad case of a couple in their 70s who were being evicted for their home to be turned into holiday lets, and they'd been renting there for over 10 years and never missed a rental payment. In Torbay, we have very low numbers of social housing, around 8%, and a high level of, comparatively speaking, high level of private rented properties, which is increasingly too expensive for those on low incomes. Whilst Torbay has and is using hotel and B&B accommodation to provide temporary accommodation, it cannot be relied on to be always available and does not provide the necessary enclosed space and facilities that particularly families with children need. Using tourist accommodation can also have a devastating effect, particularly on schooling for children. In this situation, it is absolutely right for Torbay Council to intervene. The proposal is to purchase 37 properties of self-contained accommodation which can be relied on. Full council is being asked to agree £10 million of prudential borrowing to ensure that this happens. It is also hoped that this process might also lead to the council being able to buy properties for permanent accommodation for social rent. Social rent is the type of, is a particular tenure of affordable housing that we really particularly need and is akin to former council housing. And Madam Mayor, I would like to propose the recommendation as laid out in item 3, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second and reserve my right.
I will now invite debate. But members, may I say that while I welcome healthy debate, I feel it is important that if members want to make a point and debate a point, that's fine. But please, if you are making a point, try and make a new point so we don't have members making repetition of their points over and over again. And that is on all sides of the chamber. Thank you. Do we have
Councillor O'Dwyer.
Councillor O'Dwyer.
Could I propose, please, the Conservative amendment as stated in the papers that I believe have been sent to everyone?
Is there a seconder? Councillor O'Dwyer, would you like to speak on the amendment now?
Yes, I'm happy to, if you wish. No problems. The amendment that we have proposed here is not to stop anything. It's not a bad idea. It really isn't. There is a need. This is a one way of doing it. I do think it would have been nice maybe to have kept our wholly owned housing company informed of the situation in the proposals of the council, but that isn't really part of this amendment here today. Basically, the amendment here is to concentrate people's minds in approving spending substantial monies, 10 million, to buy only 37 homes in Torbay, probably. I say probably because I wasn't sure if it was actually specific that it had to be spent within Torbay. That wasn't stated, I don't think. There isn't really any way it should cost 10 million to buy these properties. 8.3 million to buy it and about 1.7 to renovate them, as set out in the tender documents. The total also looks like a figure, unfortunately, chosen for its impact rather than the reality. It looks like a figure also that when you read the contract documents that relate to this, you also see a strange and perverse incentive to spend more so that the management fees look less as a percentage. I don't know if you've read the contracts, but obviously approving the spending of 10 million should not be something that you take for granted. It shouldn't be something that you do lightly. It should be well thought out. And with our amendment, it allows that thought process to see how we spend the first £3 million. It states in the contracts too that the first batch of housing will be completed by the 31st and let by the 31st of September, an ambitious target. And this would easily allow, should you want to go to hit that target. The second date in there is that all of them should be completed by the 31st of December. Again, another ambitious target if you're doing works. And our amendment again allows for the proper business planning to understand how much you're actually going to spend of this 10 million that I just don't see in the proposal in front of us. And I didn't see in the Cabinet papers either. I can't change the Cabinet's mind. The Cabinet made their decision and sent this to Council. But I couldn't see the concentration or the understanding of how you're going to spend up to 10 million quid. It just seems like, boom, we've done it. Today we hear we're going to suddenly be buying housing for full social housing for permanent let. That's not in for permanent letting. That's what Swithin said. That's not here. It says specifically temporary accommodation. If you're changing that, that would be interesting. So please tell us if you're making an amendment on that as well. Really, the understanding is we're putting at risk a substantial amount of money. We do need these houses. And I'm not saying don't go out and buy properties for temporary accommodation. That's not what I want at all. As a former housing association director of several former housing associations, We should be doing this. We certainly should be looking at this to bring in funds and grants from other places. But Torbay Council just approving 10 million, as it sounds
Councillor
like a
Dwyer,
nice
you have
figure,
30 seconds left.
thank you, seems without much thought. So really, I would just like to say this allows for consideration and time, but doesn't stop you going forward, as I hope that you will do, in buying properties at the right price for temporary accommodation. Thank you.
Is there a seconder, please?
I rise to second, and I will speak now, if I may, Madam Mayor. Of course, I support this, and it's the right thing to do to help the most vulnerable in our bay, to give them a start with temporary accommodation. But £10 million, and if you look at the report on page 37, the recommendations, number 1, subject to final due diligence. If you look at number 2 on the report, little 1, delegated to the Divisional Director of Community and Customer. If you look at little 2, authority be delegated to the Divisional Director. If you look at number 3, individual properties to be delegated to the Finance Officer. So every decision is delegated. There's no business plan, and it's £10 million. Madam Mayor, we have other projects coming up. We have the Debenham site, we have the pavilion, we have the new hotel, all costing millions. This council is borrowing millions and millions of pounds. And most of those decisions, once you get below the headline, is delegated to officers. Some of us on this side have major concerns of how many millions this council are actually borrowing. And that's why we've put this amendment to kick-start it with 3 million. We can then look at it, learn our lessons, and hopefully it would then come back to council and cabinet where we can learn lessons from it. At the moment, all we're doing is being asked to do the recommendations in the document, but the actual details are all delegated, and I think that is wrong. And I hope that everyone will support this, which will not delay the project, but will make it sounder, where members actually have the ability to vote for or against the decision. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Lewis. I will now take debate on the amendment. Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And we've got a housing crisis which is here and now today. As Councillor Long said in his proposal and his moving of this motion, as councillors, we're all getting daily or weekly representations from people who are experiencing severe crisis. I saw a post on social media today, and I tried finding it before I came out again tonight, of yet another family who are faced with the perils of going into substandard, poor quality temporary accommodation. That is unacceptable. That is immoral. We want to deal with the crisis that exists today, and that means taking swift and decisive action. Now, this report refers to up to 10 million. It's about the purchase costs. It's about the renovation costs. It's about making those properties where they need to be invested in, improving the stock, managing them properly to make them properties that are fit for purpose for temporary accommodation. You know, you may suggest that it's a headline-grabbing £10 million figure, but equally, 3 million plucked out of where? Based on what business case? Which of the 37 properties that we're aiming to buy are you not going to buy? You tell us that. Which ones? Because I don't think you've done that assessment. So we do need to have an ambitious target to because we need to maintain that focus. If we accept your amendment tonight, and I sincerely hope that we don't, that will lead to further dither and delay, which is a theme that we hear from this opposition time and time and time again. We need to take that decisive action. If we accepted that 3 million, if the scheme proves to be extremely successful, we'll then have to come back to full council to approve further borrowing, leading to delay. Is that going to be the September council meeting? Will it be the December council meeting? When will it be? Meanwhile, we've got people in substandard temporary accommodation not even being housed necessarily within our bay. It's unacceptable, and I would urge colleagues to reject this amendment. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Cowell. Councillor Darling, Steve Darling.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And it makes me reflect a couple of years ago when we had our joyful budget meeting, and we as the Independents and Liberal Democrats wanted to invest £9 million into children's services so it could drive the change that we wanted to see. And the Conservatives voted against that because they know best. We will see what Ofsted says tomorrow, who was right to invest in children's services, or whether colleagues were right to choose not to. So with that, I will await the results with interest tomorrow to see where the wisdom comes from that. Colleagues, this is not a panacea. This is not where we want to be as a local authority. You know, we, as colleagues have said, we have a housing crisis. This is effectively a sticking plaster. We did a process of attempting to find temporary accommodation from the market. That fell short. The bucket came up from the bottom of the well. It was half empty. We need to urgently find the other half of that bucket to serve our community. Because the reality is, and I was speaking to a lady earlier on this week who's a phlebotomist and her husband is a builder. So they're both in what would normally be seen as reasonable jobs. They lost their homes. They've been in temporary accommodation, and they have been, because we don't only have to go from, initially, they bounced from property to property. You Conservatives are looking at putting people in a situation where they are going to be bounced from property to property, rather than us actually giving them a quality offer of what they deserve. It is a sticking plaster. It isn't actually resolving that. That is something that we as a partnership are taking seriously, of driving more affordable housing in Torbay. But this is, I would say to colleagues that you should see this as whether to travel to work every day, you choose to use a hire car, which is very expensive because you're hiring that facility on a regular basis, or whether you actually say, we know that sadly we're going to need this facility on a regular basis, and therefore we will invest in it. Allowing officers to do their jobs in consultation with cabinet members is the right way forward for us. And as long as due diligence is done on each property, that the finances add up and the needs for repairs add up, then there is no reason why this shouldn't be the way forward. I must echo Councillor Cowell's comments earlier on that the challenge that we face as a local authority is that it is just another example of colleagues opposite putting the anchors on the ambition of the positive change we want to see Torbay and talking Torbay down. What we need to be doing is actually having that vision, giving the people who we contract confidence that we want to get on and get the requisite number of properties and then move on from there. The challenge that we face as a local authority is that we live hand to mouth because Richie Sunak has failed to give us more than a one-year deal. It'd be nice to have a 3-year deal for our finances. And this is another example of the short-sighted approach that the Conservatives take to finances. You need to give your contractors confidence of what you're about, where you're headed, and what your aspirations are. This hand-to-mouth short-termness by the Conservatives is foolhardy and failing our local community. I would strongly recommend that colleagues reject this. Thank you.
Councillor Darling. Councillor Barron, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to start off by saying, in principle, I agree with the ambition of what this is aiming to do. We all know, has been referred to, we have all had people contact us with housing problems. My concern really, and hopefully for the reassurance from the team opposite, is that is it what it is on what it says on the tin? It says family temporary accommodation, and yet in the information pack we've been given, it said the current housing crisis is increasing by 150% compared to 2018 and are staying in for longer. My concerns are, if there isn't a deadline for how long people can stay in this temporary accommodation, I'm not suggesting there should be, but my concern is that, as has been indicated, it's on the increase and it's getting more and more harder to find permanent accommodation. So if it's temporary, that indicates that it's going to be for a limited period. If the families that are in that temporary accommodation can't find anywhere, what happens to them then? If the answer is that there's no fixed time frame and they can stay there for as long as they like, then that kind of turns it into not temporary but permanent accommodation. And obviously 37 is a relatively small number compared to what they say is coming through down the line. So is there a possibility that if this model tends to work but turns into a bit of a permanent issue, is there a possibility of buying further properties and committing to further expenditure? My last point, if I may, is that it is addressed as family accommodation. Again, is there some reassurance that we know that there's a lot of HMOs being brought into place, houses of multiple occupancy? Is there a reassurance that this further down the line may not turn into HMOs? It's going to be sort of family properties for family units rather than HMOs. As I say, in principle, I understand that. My last concern is that, as has been indicated, there is an urgency, we understand that, but sometimes less speed is more expediency. If there isn't a lot of detail, we're not quite sure how it's all going to pan out. So it would have been nice to have a bit more detail, but I understand the urgency. I'm not denying that, and I'm pleased that they've actually been done. It's just that I have those slight concerns. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Councillor David Thomas, please.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I think there are some things that across the chamber all councillors would agree with, in as much as that temporary accommodation is absolutely needed. We've all experienced emails, we all know of situations that are ongoing around the Bay. And, you know, it is all about families. But I think the report that we've currently got in front of us at the moment, it doesn't really have any, for me personally, doesn't have the kind of depth of thought or the information or the understanding to exactly where we are. There's a large headline figure, but there's no detail. You know, there's nothing that sits below it. And unfortunately, places like Croydon spring to my mind. Croydon learned its mistakes, but it was too late for Croydon. We can't let it be too late for Torbay. This is not the first time that we've just had a headline figure appearing before us. Debenhams, the Pavilion, Travel Lodge, and we won't go into the details on any of those because this evening is not appropriate to go into the underlying details of those. But this is not a wrecking motion. This is a motion that seeks to deliver temporary accommodation, but actually gives certainty to the authority. 37 different properties. There's probably not many of us in the room who have ever owned 37 different properties. Certainly I have never owned 37 different properties, but speaking to people who landlords who are and have been in that situation talk about 37 different boilers, 37 different sets of circumstances, and what is the size of the maintenance team required to keep 37 different pieces of kit up to the required standard. Very different if you go out and buy blocks of 9 or 10 or 37 in one hit. You've got something that is standardized across there. But one here, one there, and one somewhere else, and everything is very different, actually just brings in a whole load of additional costs. So I think, you know, we all absolutely agree that temporary accommodation is 100% required, but the amendment that we have on the table this evening doesn't stop that urgency. There's timelines in there to make it happen, but it just provides some more of that reassurance that's required underneath that headline figure. Thank you very much, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Thomas. Councillor Carter.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Yeah, there's several things that I want to highlight, really. Any one of us could end up in this unfortunate position. I've spoken to many of the homeless and their situations, and they are just unbelievable. They're not intentional at all, like people often think they intend to make themselves homeless deliberately, and they're not. Anyone could suffer from a family being split up and a partner being chucked out the house or the home and then having nowhere to go, no friends, no relatives where they live, and they need temporary accommodation. Or it's a whole family on the street because there's no pay packet coming in because the family's been made redundant, the person that works is redundant, they have no money or income. So we should think of ourselves really as fortunate while we're debating this, because there's a lot of people out there that are really suffering. As for how long they would be in the accommodation, I think you need to refer to the report that you have in front of you, because it says, have a statutory duty to provide accommodation to homeless households until the duty ends or alternative accommodation is secured. So there is an end. It's not permanent accommodation, it's only temporary, and until they find somewhere else. And we all know the situation of trying to find rented accommodation in Torbay. It's very, very hard. Also, somebody else said, kickstart. Well, we don't want to kickstart, we want to get on with it. We don't want to do a little tiny bit, see if that's all right, and then do the rest, because how long is that going to take? Somebody also said, September is ambitious. Well, if September is ambitious, if you're going to kickstart and you don't even hit September, when are you going to do the rest? How long is it going to take to complete it if you're only doing a bit at a time? The immediate need is now, and we need to get on with it and get these properties so that we can get these people into accommodation of a better standard. We also, somebody said, let's not make a mistake like others. Well, we want to get out of that situation because we've used bed and breakfast. We've used self-catering accommodation. We don't want to be in that situation. We want to have temporary accommodation that is suitable for those people and not bed and breakfast. So that is why we're doing this, and it's the reason why we've put this in action. We want to put it in action. Another person said, was saying something, oh, my thing's gone off. You said something about with officers, you were consulting with officers. But they didn't finish the sentence because it also says, with consultation with the cabinet member. So there isn't just one person making that decision. And all of us here, we all talk to each other. We don't make decisions on our own. So we always discuss any problems we have, and something like this will be discussed as a whole group. So rest assured there, that is not one officer making a decision. There is the partnership making that decision. So I'm just a bit, concerned about this whole delay business. Let's just get on with this and stop delaying it, and let's just help those people out there.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Councillor Howgate.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. May I congratulate you on your appointment this year. I think colleagues on the other side of the chamber have raised a number of very good points, but if I may, I'll sort of distill them into two key proposals or issues that they've raised. The first one, I think, is that there's a lack of detail that accompanies the plans. And I think that this might be an issue that we should pay some attention to, that might have some merit. And the second point would be that there's a problem with delegation. There's too many decisions delegated too often at too many points in the process. And again, I think that's a point that we should reflect on and consider, because it's, in isolation, it's something that seems to have some merit. However, I think if you will the ends, you also will the means. And I'm struck by a kind of logical inconsistency, which seems to be that we have concerns about the lack of detail, or we have concerns about the amount of delegation, if that figure is 10 million, but if it's 3 million, apparently we don't have quite the same level of concern. I put it to my colleagues on the other side of the chamber that if you are concerned about those issues when we're spending 10 million of taxpayers' money potentially, you should be equally concerned, or almost as equally concerned, about the spending of 3 million. So I think there is an inconsistency in the argument I'm hearing from the other side of the chamber. That's not to dismiss the very valid points about the lack of detail and the amount of delegation that might be involved in the process. And I do think that there is a very good point of scrutiny there, which needs to be reflected on. However, it seems that nationally we're spending over 1.2 billion on temporary accommodation, that is from local council spend. And that's a figure that's increased by 50%, 55% nationally since 2015. 87% of that goes directly to private landlords. Now, I think that therein lies the problem. Are we happy that that amount of spend is going to the pockets of private landlords who are having to step into the breach? This is not a cheap shot at them, but Shelter, among others, would say that it's not a sustainable system to be using things like emergency B&B accommodation, often that's completely unsuited to the needs of a family, putting accommodation that was designed for one purpose to an altogether different use. It clearly isn't any form of solution, and we should be offering people in Torbay, particularly hard-pressed families at a time of greatest need, a far better service than that. So it seems to me that we either, on that side of the floor, oppose the whole proposal, not the amendment, but oppose the proposal outright, or we actually go back to what I said earlier. If you will the ends, then you will the means. And the means is the £10 million, because that allows the council some certainty to move forward. Thank you, Madam Mayor.
Thank you, Councillor Highgate. Councillor Murray.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Let's get real. We are, as has been said, facing a major housing crisis. We see, no doubt about it, we see rising energy bills, we see rising food bills, amongst those other bills are rising as well. We have, in reality, families now having to make the awful decision whether to eat or to heat their homes, and we are potentially on the verge of another recession. And unfortunately, I foresee, because of those reasons, I can foresee the problem getting worse and worse unless we do something about it. Let's make a conscious effort to go some way to address the problem. It will only be a small address, as it were, because the problem is so major. But as been previously said, now is not the time to dither. Let's not just wait and see what happens. Let's act, and let's act now. Thank you, Chair. Mayor. Sorry. Yes.
Thank you, Councillor Worry. Councillor Atiala, please.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor, and I would also like to congratulate you on your appointment today. Look, there are 227,000 people in the United Kingdom who are facing homelessness. And that could be sofa surfing, no-fault evictions, so on and so forth. We need affordable housing, or we need temporary accommodation now. Now, yeah, I've read Councillor Dwyer's amendment. There is no way we can wait, 3 months, 6 months down the line. I got families who are absolutely in destitution in Ellicombe. I recently dealt with a case of 2 trainee doctors who have a family, who have 2 young kids. And out of the blue, they have been suddenly made, almost suddenly been made homeless, and were literally given barely a month's notice. That just can't happen. We need temporary accommodation now. We also need, half of this problem has been can't even speak, I'm too nervous. Sorry, half of this problem has been caused by the Tory cost of living crisis. It was your government that relaxed stamp duty, the stamp duty holiday. This is why we are in the position that we're in. So I'd rather be on this side of the argument and not walking by and leaving people in destitution. So I will be supporting the administration's policy. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Atiyah. Councillor John Thomas, please.
How's that? I can say it again. Congratulations, and as everyone else said, well done. Ladies and gentlemen, I've had a privileged life. I've been blessed, materially and spiritually. I, however, have a lifelong belief that I need to give something back to society, who's got me to where I am. I am a landlord. I've got 13 properties, not 37, and every one of them is on LHA. And I've not put the rent up for almost 10 years, and they are as good as gold, as good as gold. I am, as you know, acting chairman of Shekinah, and daily I rub shoulders with the people who are at the bottom of the social pile. And I think I know a little bit about the people who are in that area. I am totally in favour of this proposal, but I'm also in favour of the amendment. And the reason I say this, Councillor Cowell is a very well-respected businessman, but I doubt whether his board would let him get away with spending £10 million without a proper business plan. And the business plan contains a financial appraisal. The one thing I can tell you from my own experience, because I am also building properties, is that we are now in a situation post-COVID where there is a serious lack of skilled tradesmen in the building area. And as a result, they are very selective in what jobs they will take. And I would just make that point, because into this programme, which I support, you have to take account of unforeseens. And the increasing salaries that skilled tradesmen are taking are unforeseen, but they are rocketing. There are £1.3 million jobs going at the moment which cannot be filled by skilled people. I do support this proposal. However, I ask for a business plan which has got a detailed and forensic financial report at the back, which contains contingencies just in case. And I do have a deep respect for Councillor Cowell, I beg your pardon, and I do not believe that he would put a business plan to his board without such a business plan. But I say again, I do support this proposal. It's needed, it's essential, and it's needed now. But if we don't know what the costs are, we are asking for trouble. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor John Thomas. As we don't have any more debate, I will go back to Councillor O'Dwyer.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Just to summarise, really, we're trying to help make it better. We're not trying to stall it. We're not doing any, there's no politics on it. It's a good idea, but there isn't enough detail here. We're trying to help fulfil our fiduciary duty. This is £10 million here, and we want to spend it well. The report says it's 37 properties. Well, there are currently 157 households in the report, and 62 of them are families. This doesn't stop fully the spot purchasing that we're doing now. If you get this wrong, you've spent too much, you won't be able to roll it out and buy more. And that is where we're coming from. Get this right, spend the money well, and you may have more of that 10 million. More income, more people helped. That's where we're coming from here. We want to get it right first time, which is where this amendment comes from. A place of care and a place of determination to succeed. Sometimes I am worried that people don't always read their reports, that they don't always know what the contracts say. If you have a look in that report, based on the figures there, at £10 million for 37 properties, it could in fact cost more than the current unfortunate spot price system. And that is again somewhere where we don't want to be. We're trying to provide homes and be more efficient with the use of our funds. So it's a good idea. There just isn't the full business case there. And our proposal is not to stall it. If you want, you can look at it as the 3 million first up, and very quickly, once you've got the business case, you can keep up with the targets that are set out in the contract, which is you will have all the properties completely done by 31st of December. I think you will struggle on that, but that's what it says in the contracts that are in the tender portal. So again, please read the reports. Please read your contracts that you're putting out. We're not trying to stop it. We're trying to make it better. And that is all from where this amendment comes from. So please have a look at it. Even if you don't agree with it as it is, consider it. For when making future decisions and spending money, we are spending huge amounts of sums and you're not seeing the returns that you're expecting. We have way too many projects that the price is just going up, and we can all agree on that. We need to be careful. We need to ensure that where we are spending money, we're spending it efficiently on the services we want. And overspending on this takes money away from other services. So please, just consider it when you look at this amendment. It's from a place of care and a place to succeed for Torbay, not to stop the good idea. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dwyer. I return to Councillor Long as the mover of the original recommendation.
Thank you very much, Madam Mayor. I had thought that around the chamber that we had all agreed that there was a housing crisis. But sadly, time and again, we have from the other side blockages being put in the way to trying to help alleviate that. We saw that with the next steps accommodation process that we did. Lots of blockages put there. And we have it again here tonight. Much like nationally, where the government are being accused of not doing enough with the cost of living crisis, it's the same here with the housing crisis. The report says up to £10 million. We're not going to go out tomorrow and blow it all. So if it's not working, then we won't be spending all of it. So I could give that reassurance. Reference was made, and I think Councillor Carter covered it very, very well about the delegation, but we've had this conversation at cabinets many, many times. When we changed from the mayoral system and we went out to consultation, the residents of the Bay said they wanted a committee system, but the then administration decided that what the people said wasn't good enough and we could have a cabinet system. So this is what you wished for. And every individual cabinet member will be consulting on every single item of this. So that's all above board. There's been lots of reference to a business case. In fact, there will be 37 business cases based on each particular property, and those are the things that will be being discussed when those delegations happened. There was reference, perhaps it was jokingly made, about not many people here own 37 properties. In fact, The Guardian reported in 2017 that 39% of councillors in Torbay own multiple properties, including one who has received more than 63,000 in housing benefit payments for tenants in the last 2 years. And I just would say gently to colleagues what it looks like for the people viewing, having potentially councillors who are beneficiaries of that money arguing against the council intervening in this market to help homeless people. I don't think it looks very good. I would urge my partnership colleagues to vote against this amendment. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Long. I will now ask the Chief Executive to take the vote on the amendment.
Of course, Madam Mayor. On the amendment that is before you, those in favour, please raise your hands. Members, those against? Any abstentions? Madam Mayor, the amendment was lost. We'll therefore revert to the substantive motion on the table.
Thank you. On the original motion, do we have any?
Members, is there any further debate on the original motion? Madam Mayor, if not, then Councillor Cowell reserved his right on the original motion.
Councillor Cowell.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. And I think we've just had quite a comprehensive debate, and I don't think there's much more to add. Thank you.
Thank you. And Councillor Long.
Madam Mayor, apologies. I missed Councillor Kennedy's hand there just before. So if you'd like to go to Councillor Kennedy and then to Councillor Long.
Councillor Kennedy, would you like to come in, please?
Thank you, Madam Mayor, and I'm sorry if I was a little slow putting my hand up. For many years, Torbay Council has not brought forward the number of affordable homes needed. There are many reasons for this, not least of which has been weak challenges to the developers' viability statements. Year after year, our waiting list for affordable housing has increased gradually with it until 2 years ago. COVID has propelled the speed at which Torbay has hit a housing crisis, though warning signs have been very clear along the way. Torbay has provided with government funding to unlock 3 sites at pace, yet 5 years later, not one of those sites has provided us with much needed housing. Given the delays in addressing this problem, the proposed...
Councillor Kennedy, does this impact on the debate that we're having?
Sorry?
Is this relevant to actually...
I thought it was relevant to what... Yes, it's relevant to what the proposal.
At the moment.
Sorry?
Continue then, continue.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. Got to remember where I was now. So given the delays in addressing the problem, the proposed £10 million in funding will not go as far as it would have gone had we addressed the problem in a timely manner. I am fully in favour of this current proposal as we are in a crisis with no other solution on the table. But we have to acknowledge that this is a very expensive sticking plaster, and we need to ensure we put appropriate measures in place now to provide long-term solutions. This council has been reactive rather than proactive for far too long, which has resulted in a culture which cannot be totally blamed on austerity. Our residents need our cabinet members and officers to get a firm grip on the reins of the varying housing needs in our bay, make them a priority, and get ahead of the problem so we don't lurch from one crisis to another. Acting with foresight rather than hindsight will assist us moving toward becoming more effective and efficient with our funding. Thank you.
Councillor Kennedy. Councillor Long.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I was going to second Councillor Cowell's seconding, but I would just say that Councillor Kennedy makes some incredibly valid points. Not enough affordable housing has been built for a number of years in Torbay, and I think in the year I was elected in 2017, this council spent more on luxury beach huts than they did on affordable housing, which is not a great record. So you're absolutely right, as always, Councillor Kennedy. Happy to go to the vote, Madam Mayor.
Now I invite the Chief Executive to take the vote.
Members, you have the original motion before you. Those in favour, please raise your hands. And Mayor, that's unanimous. Councillor Long, your microphone's still on, please.
I'm now moved to item 9, joint statement of conduct by elected members. Can Councillor Steve Darling please put his motion to the Council?
Thank you, colleagues. Clearly, the way we treat each other and conduct in public life is extremely important. Social media has been no friend of managing the conduct of whether it's elected members or whether it is those who may wish to influence them. And I think that it is right, particularly in light of what we may see at a national level, which is in the extremists, such as the murdering of a Conservative MP in Southend quite some years ago, or equally the murdering of Joe Cox. And that is in extremis what you see when there is a lack of civility in public life. And we need to make sure that we as a local authority are saying that we have standards that we wish to adhere to, and the way that we treat each other is right. We need to have that firm debate like we've just had, but it doesn't have to be personalised. It doesn't have to actually go down to the lowest level, the lowest denominator. So I would encourage colleagues to back the proposals before us this evening, as this is how we can face down those trolls and those who would wish harm. Because whilst we may have our differences across the chamber and even within different groups, but the vast majority of people who stand for elected office in the United Kingdom are good people of whichever political party who wish to see the best for the local community, and they do not deserve some of the awful approaches that they have. And the proposals before us is a really good framework to ensure that that is driven out from our world in Torbay. So thank you, Madam Mayor. I'd like to put the proposals that's been circulated.
Thank you, Councillor Darling. Is there a seconder?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I rise to second this, and actually having been on the receiving end of hate crime on a much lower level as effectively a local councillor, more than happy to second and support this.
I now invite debate. Councillor John Thomas.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. It is a sad measurement of society in that in the past 20 or 25 years, the standards which politics are following, not the majority by any means, but certainly a minority, leaves much to be desired. I don't know what other chambers are like. I believe that this chamber is relatively good, and certainly I will be supporting Councillor Darling's motion. But when you listen to the television and you look at Parliament, there are many, many good people in there of all parties. But we are not doing ourselves any favour by setting a standard that is in Parliament where it's yaboo. So I do believe that this is an important proposal. From a societal point of view, there's also a lot, sadly, far too much, should I say, badness against person in society. As you know, I have been on the working panel with Councillor Germain, that we are a racist society. We're not a racist society. Sadly, there are too many people who take the headlines. But basically, in general, we are a good society, thank God, and we are a good council, thank God. We do disagree, but we disagree with the greatest of respect. So it will have my full support. Thank you.
Is there any further debate? Councillor Steve Darling, the right of reply.
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I'm very happy to go to the vote.
Executive to take the vote, please.
Councillor Thomas, could you turn your... Thank you. Members, please raise your hands if you're in favour of this motion. Madam Mayor, that's unanimous.
Thank you. I now invite the group leaders to come forward to the lectern to sign the joint statement on behalf of all councillors.
I'll sign it now, I think. I'm just going to step on that way. You've hold the dog. Use pens just here. Yep.
Okay, thank you. I move now to item 10, appointment of independent person. Can Councillor Carter please put her motion to the council?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. We have been operating with 2 independent persons to assist the Standards Committee, but one of the persons wishes to stand down. We could still operate with 1, but it's felt more appropriate that the council should operate with 2 independent persons. Following advertising and interviews, it was unanimously agreed that Dr. Lund was suitable for the role to help the local authority to promote and maintain the high standards of conduct by members required by the Localism Act 2011. The appointments must be confirmed by full council. So I therefore propose that the council appoints Dr. Kathleen Lund as its independent person for a period commencing on the 17th of May 2022 and expiring on the 17th of May 2026, and that the Chief Executive, on behalf of the council, write to Mr. Peter Styler, thanking him for his time and guidance during his tenure as independent person. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Carter. Is there a second?
Yes, Madam Mayor, I'm happy to second this. I'm delighted to second the appointment of Dr Lund as an independent person to assist the Council Standards Committee. I first met Dr Lund in the mid-70s when she was Torbay's Area Education Officer. I've always found her to be fair-minded, honourable and somewhat forthright, and I'm sure she will fulfil this role admirably. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mills. I now invite debate. Councillor Carter, do you have a right to reply? Is there anything else?
No, happy to go to the vote.
Thank you. I will now ask the Chief Executive to take the vote, please.
Members, those in favour, please raise your hands. Madam Mayor, that's unanimous.
Thank you. I move to item 11, Overview and Scrutiny Board Annual Report 2021-22. Will Councillor Douglas Dunbar present the report?
Thank you, Madam Mayor. I would like to present the Overview and Scrutiny Annual Report, which is on page 61 of your pack. I would also like to thank the board members for all their hard work this year. The Overview and Scrutiny Board considered 29 topics, including 6 health-related items, and made a number of recommendations to Cabinet that were accepted. To help support the children's improvement journey, a Children's and Young People's Overview and Scrutiny Board was set up and considered 28 topics. In light of this, we have established an Adult Social Care and Health Overview and Scrutiny Subboard to focus on these particular areas. During the year, we have also reviewed and recommended actions to the Cabinet to tackle Torbay's housing crisis, working with key experts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Douglas Dunbar. This item is only for noting. I move to item 12, Standing Order D11, in relation to overview and scrutiny, call-in and urgency. Again, this item is for noting and no vote is required. I'd like to thank members for attendance at the meeting this evening, and I will now close the meeting.